Hello, 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 everybody. Hello. Welcome, welcome. It's another Monday night of Dropping the Tea, and we are so excited to have you here with us on tonight. I know you guys are ready and been waiting all day because I have. I am so excited about this guest on tonight. Yes, we have our song. How many of you glad that we made it? In spite of the storm. Hello, hello. Thank you for joining. Go ahead and share and like. We are so glad to have you here. This is YCG Ministry. We are dropping the tea on this Monday night. And I don't know about you, but I am ready to go. I have my tea and I'm ready to drop it on tonight. Amen. Thank you guys. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. We are super glad about today. How have you guys Monday been? It's been a long Monday, but a good one. I am super excited. I am so excited about tonight, you guys. The things we go through, the song say is building our testimony. Hello, hello, welcome. Go ahead and like and share. We are so glad to have you here. Thank you, Ella Bree, for sharing. We appreciate you on tonight. We are super excited to be here. We are so glad. Dropping the tea tonight is going to be another amazing episode on tonight. We are coming to bring hope, to encourage, to inspire, and most importantly, to give glory to the Almighty God for the things that He has done. Whatever it is that you are facing on today, God is here to help you go through it. So glad I made it. How about you all tonight? We made it through. I'm excited about life on today. I'm excited about making it on today. The trials and the tribulations that we have faced, God has allowed us to make it through and to be here at this moment. We're so excited about the things that God is doing, the stories that are going forth on dropping the tea, the lives that are being changed. We are so glad to be here on tonight. Go ahead and continue to share, continue to like. Go ahead and start a watch party. Tell somebody it's going to be another epic episode of Dropping the Tea on tonight. Hello, hello. Thank you for joining. Thank you. I love this song, y'all. It's so fitting for tonight. We're so glad. We're all glad that we have made it to this point. We could have been so many places, but we are here. We are here on tonight, and we are here to bring glory to the Father on tonight with this awesome testimony of how God healed and set us free. Whatever the things are that we have went through, God is a healer. Amen. Go ahead and give some heart. You know how we do it when we come on dropping the tea. Are you guys ready? Let me see it in the comments. Go ahead and roll it. Are we ready? Yes. Thank you guys so much. So I am so excited about tonight, you guys. I am getting ready to go ahead and bring our guest forward. And you guys know how we do it on Dropping the Tea. Let's show him some love because we are excited. We are super excited, y'all, about tonight. Hello.
How you doing? How you doing?
I am great. I am well. How are you tonight?
I'm doing wonderful. Doing wonderful. Thank you for having me. This is such a blessing. I look forward to the conversation.
Yes, thank you. I'm telling you, we are so glad. I'm not just saying that. We are super excited about having you tonight. Like I told you, I think even in our conversation prior to the interview, that I prayed for God to give me. God gave me this subject to talk about, but I was praying for the right man to bring forth. So we're just so excited that you're here with us on tonight. I'm going to allow you to tell the people your name as well as tell them where you are originally from and tell them where you are located now. So at this time, it's on you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you to your audience as well for having me. My name is Kevin McNeil. I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, but I live here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I make home now with my beautiful wife, Tashana. And we enjoy Atlanta. I moved here several years ago, about 20 something years ago. So I consider myself a native Atlantan, but I'm born and raised, cornbread fed Memphis. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome, amazing. All right, you guys, are you ready? Because we about to drop the tea on tonight. It's about to go down. We are about to get into his story, his testimony. There is still time to go ahead and share. There is still time to go ahead and like. And so we're just super excited about having the man of God on tonight and telling his personal testimony. So we about to go ahead and we about to drop this tea. You ready? Here we go. All right. So what can you tell the audience and myself about your childhood? About, what was it like growing up? Did you have siblings? Were your parents present? Were you in a home of mother and a father? Was it a single home? What can you tell us on tonight about your childhood? Uh,
Yeah.
Jane, thank you for sharing. Thank you for coming on. I'm going to go ahead and let you tell the audience a little bit about your childhood.
Yeah, my childhood was very troubling. I never knew my father. My mom told me that my father was murdered when I was born. So at a very young age, I ended up with my grandfather. Don't know why, but my mom didn't raise me for the first part of my life. My grandfather and my grandmother somewhat adopted me. And when my grandfather died, I went back to stay with my mother at the age of 8. And that was a shock within itself because I didn't know my brothers and sisters. I really didn't know them well. So it was like going to a foster care parent, but with my real parent there. And the first day I went home, I got a spanking because I was crying. I didn't know the etiquette in that culture, that environment, right? Where kids to be seen and not heard. And so my grandparents' home, it was very, liberal. I was able to do things. They were older, and I was able to be a little boy. But when I got at my mom's house, they were a lot more strict. And things started happening immediately. As a little boy, I started noticing abusive situations in the home, domestic abuse, other types of abuse. And as a little boy, I didn't understand what was going on. So my mom, she was dating a guy who was my stepfather. He was about 6'6", 6'7". My mom was every bit of 4'5", right? And so I remember as a kid him hitting her so hard that he would grunt as he hit her. And I didn't understand that I was so angry as a little boy. And on top of that, I got bullied all the time because my mom was a single mom. She had 5 kids. And so I didn't have the best of clothes. Went to school, I was bullied a lot. Man, I was already at the age of 10 or 11 think about suicide. I think about why am I here? You know, no one likes me. You know. Then, you know, one day I was coming home from school, or I was going to school, and I saw this kid who was similar to me. He was kind of strange, but nobody messed with this kid. You know, the reason being he had muscles everywhere, so they were too intimidated by him. So I thought to myself, man, if I can get like that kid, you know, I can stop this bullying thing from going on. So I asked him, I said, can I lift weights, man? Where weight set? He had a weight set at home, and my mom couldn't afford a weight set for me because she had 5 other kids. And so I went to lift weights. When we started lifting weights, my mom told me that I had to get home before it got dark. Before it got dark, you know how those curfew things work when you was little. And although my mom was 4 or 5, she didn't play that. So one day I was having so much fun, you know, I lost track of time. And I didn't want to disappoint my mother, but the truth is I didn't want to get a whooping or spanking. So I decided to rush home. I told my friend bye. It was already dark. It was too late. So I decided to take a shortcut to get home. And everybody took this shortcut with some railroad tracks, but this time it was dark. And so when I took the shortcut, a man appeared out of nowhere. Now you gotta imagine, I'm 12 years old. And I didn't know what this guy wanted with me because he came up out of the stadium. He came up out of complete darkness. And he looked at me. And you would have thought this man knew who I was because he knew exactly what to ask me. He said, hey, kid, I don't mean to startle you. I'm not going to harm you. I stole some weights out of the high school gym. And the railroad tracks that I was at, I was right next to a high school. So that was believable. And so he asked me if I would go down into the stadium and help him carry some of the weights. He would give me some of them. And so as a 12-year-old little kid, I'm thinking, man, that's great. You know, I can have my own weight set. This way I won't be in this predicament. I can have my friend come to my house sometimes, you know. So when I went down to the bleachers, he told me to go underneath the bleachers, pitch black dark, and he lit a match, told me the weights was under there. And I went up under there and I didn't see the weights. And he lit a match again and told me to look again. And I looked again. By that time I knew, you know, instinctively something was wrong. But before I could respond, this man had grabbed me and he just started pummeling me with his fists. And I was crying and yelling, please don't kill me, because I didn't know what he wanted with me. You know, I didn't have much. And I remember him just beating me. And the next thing I knew I was on the ground. And before you know it, he removed his penis, made me perform over sex on him. And then once he was done doing that, he took my clothes off and he proceeded to try to rape me and insert his penis inside of me. It wouldn't go, you know, it was hurting, too painful. And so he did something to try to reposition me or whatever. And when he did that, that gave me an opportunity to break away from him. But he caught me and started beating my head on the concrete. And I was just about to lose consciousness. And I remember hearing my mother say, come home, come home. And I fought that man. 12 years old, I fought him. And I made a promise, okay, I'll do it, you know. And I went to turn around and pretend to pull my pants back down. And when he saw that, he pulled his pants down. And that's when I took off running. He quickly pulled his pants up and I got a head start. Ran across the football field. And the only thing that stood between me and death was a highway. And I was looking behind me as I was running. He had taken a belt off. He was swinging the belt around in the air. And I knew if he caught me, he was going to strangle me with that belt. But I ran into the highway. Cars began to swerve left and right. You know, I didn't care about getting hit by a car. I just wanted to get away. If I was going to get hurt, I'd rather get hurt on the street unless somebody noticed I was hurt than being found dead underneath the set of bleachers. Because he made it very clear that I wasn't going to leave those bleachers. So I walked home. You know, I walked through a shopping plaza. I had on no shirt, no shoes, you know, my jeans were mixed with blood and mud, and people just moved out of my way. Can you imagine at 12 years old, little kid, you know, I lived in that neighborhood, you know, that South Side neighborhood where people mind their business. And they didn't want no part of this little kid walking through the shopping plaza, barely dressed, bleeding, looking for help. And so I made it all the way on my street. When I got on my street, my mom was standing on the porch. My brothers and sisters had already become worried. And when she approached me, she saw me. And she was getting ready to whoop me, thinking that I was just being a bad kid and just ignored her instructions to come home on time. But she saw me, and she was just, the look on her face, I can still remember it now. It was one of shock and fear. And she asked me what happened. Now, mind you, I'm 12 years old. I never knew my father. I'm a virgin. I was a virgin. I was never introduced to sex at all. And the first time a man ever reached out to me to show me any type of affection was through a sexual assault in my rape. So I was made to do things that was despicable and horrible. And so I couldn't tell my mom the truth. So I told my mom a lie. I told her that I was robbed. And the neighborhood we stayed in, it was believable, and so she wanted to call the police, but I told my mom, no, please don't call the police, please. For some reason, even at 12, I knew if the police got involved, they would get the truth out of me. And there I was, 12 years old, already bullied the rest of most of my life. Never knew my father. I was bullied not just by friends, but I was bullied by family members because I didn't know my father. I was probably one of the only kids in my family who never met or knew his father. So I told my mom that, and she didn't call the police. She respected my decision. And so after that, I thought I was okay. I thought, you know what, I made it out fine. So I started going to school, and the things started happening differently, right? Because now when I was bullied, I didn't just take it and cry, because now I was so angry. I was fighting all the time. And I was getting in fights all the time. I was skipping school, and the grades started going down. And the only reason that I was able to maintain decent grades or to graduate, this is where God comes in, and I'll talk about this later, was because Tennessee, they had a no pass, no play. And I wanted to play football. Football was my way of hiding. It's like, put that uniform on, did nobody see me, they saw the uniform, the football uniform. And I remember walking down to that stadium, the very same stadium where I was raped at, the very set of bleachers where my rape took place in. The very next year, I walked down to the stadium and told the football coach that I was going to be his running back. And he laughed me to scorn. I mean, he laughed. He laughed so hard, he called the assistant coach over and said, come look at this little guy. Tell him what you just told me. I said, I'm going to be your running back. They both laughed. And they saw I was serious. So he told me to come and practice the next week. We'll see what you got. Long story short, within 2 years, I was starting running back for Booker T. Washington High School in Memphis, Tennessee. And every day I walked right past that stadium, right past that bleachers where my assault occurred. Not once did I think about what happened. Got dressed out in the football uniform. Then when football season was over, I ran track. The very place that I was ran across that field for my life, I was now running track, competing. And not once did I think about what happened to me. And so I thought I was good, but I didn't know I wasn't good, because in the midst of that, some addictions happened, some sexual addictions. Now I was looking at pornography. There was constant masturbating. It was almost like I was trying to get the pain and the anger out. I was trying to feel something. And so my life just went underground, right? And so I was allowed to graduate high school by the grace of God. And I joined the military. It was my way of running away from home, getting away from Memphis. But that was also my way of this continuation of hiding behind uniforms. And so I went into the military for 8 years, still dealing with these addictions and still dealing with these suicidal ideations, because, I carried this secret. And that's a baggage, that's a weight, because I tell people, you think about it, your body goes everywhere you go. And when someone has violated your body and taken the one thing you come to earth with and made it feel like, it's not worth anything, every day I had to look at this same body that I hated. And no matter how many uniforms I put on, it was still there. So joined the military for 8 years. After 8 years, I got out and I went to the police department, became a police officer here in Atlanta. That's how I got to Atlanta. And again, as you can see, another uniform. I'm still hiding, right? I'm not comfortable. I'm trying to let people see the uniforms are not me. Even with a loaded gun, bad to my side. I was still suicidal. And this when I started drinking. And I started to come to alcoholic, binge drinking. Man, I mean, sleeping around. I mean, I was married at first, but got a divorce. As a police officer, when I was married, I got a divorce. And so started drinking, lost my house. I lost my cars. And I moved into a one-bedroom apartment that God had set aside for me. And I was working a courtesy officer, which was security part-time for free rent because I didn't have any money. I was broke, sleeping on the floor. They had no furniture. Then I pulled this lady over, while I was at work in the police officer. But really, that was the night God pulled me over, because I pulled her over for having one headlight, I think. And when I pulled her over, she started crying. And I said, I'm not going to give you a ticket. I'm just going to give you a warning. That was so nice of me that she invited me to church. And her brother was the pastor. Now, mind you, I had been in a church ages. Didn't talk to God, didn't pray to God. All this stuff that was going on. Even as a little boy, I didn't understand why would God let that happen to me. Why would God let my mom go through what she's going through? Why would God let my friends and my family, suffer through abuse and be a witness to it? And so I started going to church. This pastor's, he took his time with me, started going through the Bible with me, and before I know it, I was just in love with the book. And I decided, you know what, I want to learn more. Right? So I signed up for seminary. Before you know it, I'm getting another uniform, right? Becoming a minister, a pastor. Because now I'm in school, I was told I needed the credentials in order to preach and to teach. And so went to seminary, got a master's of divinity degree from Morehouse School of Religion, interdenominational theological center here in Atlanta. But then God called me again. I mean, literally called me. I was sitting in my office. By this time, I had become a special victim detective. And I was investigating child abuse crimes, rapes, and domestic. Just pay attention to the irony, right? I'm not choosing these things. They're choosing me, right? I go from an abuse victim to now to a detective who's investigating abuse crimes. Not once did I choose it, they chose me. They said, hey, why don't you come on, be a detective? My dream was to be a homicide detective, but they put me in SVU, special victims, and I didn't know what that was until they started showing me. But you can imagine what this did. This rekindled this little boy who was inside of me, hiding and crying and wanted to be noticed and wanted to be resurrected. So I was watching other little boys talk about their molestations. I was watching families, transgenerational trauma and abuse just being passed down through the lineage from grandmother to mother to daughters and sons. And I was like, wow, man, this is, and then it started clicking, right? When I was a police officer, I saw the crime on the streets. And once I became a detective, I started investigating these children's crimes and how children were being molested and not getting healed. I began to put together like, wow, the violence in our culture comes from adverse childhood. The pain that we suffer in childhood, we carry with us throughout our lives. And like Alice Miller said, that your childhood lasts a lifetime, right? So I wanted to do more. And one day I was sitting in the office by myself, the detective's office, and the phone rang. When the phone rang, it was the district attorney's office saying that they needed a detective who would be willing to teach a class on evidence collection. I said, well, there's nobody here but me, And then they said it's on a weekend, a Saturday, a day off, and they wasn't going to pay anybody to do it. And it was something like 60 miles away. I said, no, I don't know no detective that's going to do that on their own day. And I get paid to travel that far. And they asked me, what you do? I said, like I said, I don't know no detective. So the guy was like, come on, man, we need you. So I said, okay, I'm going to do it. But when I hung up the phone, I didn't know what I was going to say. I mean, like I never taught a class before. I've been through seminary and through some training, but, that was about religion and the Bible. So I went and I was to teach a bunch of nurses, sane nurses, sexual assault nurses, how to collect evidence for sexual assault cases. So when I went down there, I said, you know what? I'm gonna go for broke. I'm just gonna share my story, what happened to me. And when I did that, I stopped and looked into the audience. There wasn't a wet eye, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience, and people were crying. It was like, oh my God. And afterwards, people were coming up to me, and they were sharing with me for the first time their stories of being molested, their stories of being hurt, and by family members and people that they knew. You know, grown men who were crying. You know, telling me that, you know, I gave them permission to unload and to share their stories. And so I kept going back to one day, the instructor asked me, would I be willing to travel? Told me they weren't going to pay me. Right? They didn't know I was at this conference, but they thought that they'll set aside a little side for me to speak. So when I got there, I drove to North Carolina. I had a car I had just bought for $1,500, the Toyota Camry. And this thing was leaking everything possible, right? It was leaking every oil or liquid you could imagine. And I had this pocket full of change. I told you I was broke. I was beyond broke. At the back of the force, all this stuff that was going on. I was partially reason I was going to school was to get some financial aid money to live off of. And so I wasn't going to get paid for another 2 weeks. And I had this change in a Ziploc bag that I kept just in case of emergencies, probably about $6 or $7 in change. So I got on the road with a half tank of gas. And as I'm going up this hill from Atlanta to North Carolina. I'm going up this hill, and I can remember specifically God said, you won't return down from this mountain the same way you went up it. And at the time, I didn't know what it meant because I'm looking at my gas tank, the engine light on, you know, everything's, you know, smoking. I'm wondering if I'm going to make it. And so I pull up, and I didn't even know what a conference was. When I pull up, there's this Bojangles chicken. They have a special 5 pieces of chicken for $5. I said, man, you know, they're not gonna feed me. I'm gonna go ahead and get this chicken. And I'm gonna eat off for the next 3 days while I'm at this conference because they wanted me to speak one day and I could enjoy the other 2 days. So I get the chicken and then I turn on the property and it's a Methodist church resort. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, I didn't know they had a conference down there on the church resort. I mean, beautiful. Lake Juno School. I mean, it's beautiful. So I get there, you know, I park all the way in the back. I mean, I'm circling around so people can't see me getting out this car. And then, you know, I go to speak. I speak, you know, there are a couple of people in the room, about 20, 30 people. And so I speak. And so the next day I had another class that I was going to speak. In the morning, I was going to be done. I was going to go out and enjoy, you know, the festivities and the land, the lake. And when I showed up the next morning, right, after I got done speaking that day, you know, people lined up trying to get me to go to lunch. I was too embarrassed to tell them I had no money for lunch. They didn't know I had chicken in the room. I was going to go eat. So the next day, I go downstairs and there's this crowd like gathered, like in front of the room that I was teaching in before. And I'm thinking to myself, they didn't move me to a smaller room, right? Somebody better and greater than be in that room. So they must decide to move me to another room. And so I'm easing up trying to look at what my name at on the chart while I'll be speaking at. And a lady saw me, she said, oh, there he is. And I looked and she said, they waiting on you. I said, waiting on me. She said, all these people coming in to hear you speak, we're gonna have to bring more chairs into the room. Your name got around the conference yesterday. And I was like, wow. So I spoke, and when I got done speaking, the organizers came to me. The organizer of the conference, I'm talking about the CEOs, were like, hey, we want to take you to dinner. You know, it's on us. With anything you want. And when I walked into the restaurant, they took me to a steakhouse. I was bombarded by people from all over the country handing me business cards, telling me, can you do our conference? Can you speak at our conference? Speak at our conference. I was like, wow, man, yeah, I guess. And they was like, what do you charge? I was like, I don't know. So I don't know. I didn't even know what to charge people. And God had a young lady there that pulled me to the side and say, you know what? I'm gonna help you book your next conference. She told me what to ask for and put together contracts for me. But within 2 years, I was resigning from the police department, doing this full time. It became my passion. Began to travel all around the world, Bermuda, Alaska, San Diego. And before you know it, I remember God telling me, you'll know it's time to go when what you love interferes with what you tolerate. So I love seeing the looks on people's faces. And people that came afterward crying and saying that I too am a victim. And I feel so much better now. So that's how I ended up organizing and starting an organization called the 12 Project. The reason I call it the 12 Project, for one, my assault happened at 12, but it's mainly scripture based. In Matthew 10, 1 and 2, get it 10, 1 and 2. 12. The Bible says that Jesus summoned the 12 disciples. He gave them power over abusive spirits. And that scripture became my calling. And what I believe God was calling me to do. Because 12 is the number of restoration. That's why you got 12 months in a year. That's why you got 12 people sit on a jury for justice. So the 12 Project was born with the whole intent to educate the world on the effects of abuse. And my whole goal was to take what I was teaching at conferences and bring it into people's living rooms. I wanted to take what was happening in courtrooms and classrooms and bring it to people's living rooms. Because this is where they needed it, right? The people who've been affected, people like me, needed to hear these things about how the brain is affected, how the brain, is seeing the world now as a dangerous place, seeing people as dangerous people. It affects your relationships. There's a reason that African Americans are leading in every negative category when it comes to health. Sometimes when it comes to brain, right? the trauma that's been passed down from slavery, we haven't dealt with it with continuously. And the way the brain works when it comes to trauma, it's hard to focus on what he sees. You're trying to stay alive and survive. So now I'm an author of 7 books. Got my 8th book coming out later this year. Just dropped the book, The 6 Requirements to be Blessed, on Amazon. So man, I'm just highly blessed and still in the healing process, still in this struggle, right? And trying to show myself compassion, because trauma just doesn't go away. And I always tell people, God can heal you, ED, but I believe God preferred methodology is healing, ING, to let God heal you at such deep depths that you can become a healer yourself. And so that's my whole goal. And so that's why I'm here today, dropping the T to you all.
You talking about when a dry eye in the place when you were talking. I tell you, when you first started talking, they were hard to try to hold back.
Thank you.
You have such a powerful story. But, in the midst of that complete story, which I know it was just so amazing to hear the divine plan of God.
Yeah. And, I went back and I got a football picture, old football picture. I totally forgot about the football picture when I played football. And I saw this picture and I just started crying because I was sitting on the same set of bleachers for a photo for the football team. And I was wearing the number 12. And I never thought about it. I'm like, how ironic is that God would give me that name, the 12 Project. And I'm sitting in here at 12 years old wearing the number 12 on the same set of bleachers for my softball career. So, that was confirmation by itself. But yeah, it's amazing.
It is amazing. Oh my God. It is so, we are just so excited, that you have chosen to share your story with us. It has been such a blessing. Was there ever a time, at what point in time did you ever reveal to your mom exactly what had happened?
Yeah, that was the hardest thing that happened in my life, because there was a writer from Ebony or BET, and she was writing an article for, I think it was Ebony, about, or CNN, it was for CNN, about males who had been abused. And she asked me to share my story, and she out the name, and she wasn't going to put my real name in it, which I thought was okay, that's fine. But then I went to court like the next week, and I was on the stand, and something hit me. You know, it was like God was dealing with me still. When that bailiff said, "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?" And the district attorney told me that I couldn't tell my story because the victim in my case was a male, and they didn't want the jury to think that I was being sympathetic towards the victim, and locked this guy up because I was trying to get some type of personal vendetta. And I couldn't tell my story, and I thought, man, that hurts. And so I called the editor back and said, hey, put my name in there. I want my name to go. If I want other people to get healed from that pain, I need to share mine. Hung up the phone. The only problem was I was like, wait a minute, my mom will hear about this. And so I called my mom. I said, Mom, you remember that time I showed up at home, church? She said, yeah, the guys robbed you. I said, well, not quite. So I told her a little bit over the phone because I didn't want to drop that bombshell over the phone. But she got enough information to remember. And it was ironic. I think she knew, my respect for my mom really increased when I found out that my mom let me own my story and tell it when I was ready to tell it. I wasn't forced to tell it. That's something that I teach victims all the time, and people who know victims, is that sometimes the only thing we feel we have left as victims is our story. And if we're made to tell it and we're not prepared to tell it, that's the one last thing that we felt we had control over that you cannot take away from us. So I respect my mom dearly for that. And she knew more. The mother instinct, she knew. So when she finally heard me tell the truth, she cried, but she kind of, she was happy in the space that I was in. And the other irony about that is that I moved to Atlanta. When I got here, I started hearing about the Wayne Williams murders and all these other little boys that were ending up dead on the bleachers on the side of the road. And I'm thinking, wow, God, you would put me in a place to remind me that could have been you. And so God is always dealing with me, even in levels where I feel like I messed up, because as a victim, a survivor, you always you beat yourself up because you're your own worst critic. So when people say, why didn't he heal? Or why didn't she tell? Or why did she go there? The victim has already asked themselves that 1,000 times. Right? What could I have done different? So even now, I have to be intentional. Feel love, feel rejected. In a marriage, you get those times where you don't feel love. And if you're not careful, you will consider your partner in a relationship, your wife, she's being human. She maybe don't want, to deal with you like that. But as a survivor, you can take that on personally. And as a male survivor, I want to fix it, right? I want to prove that I'm worthy, right? And then those sexual addictions start kicking back up, right?
Right.
And so it's God, what are you doing to me? Right? So, but God's like, my grace is sufficient. I heard a video of a homeless guy that said something that really stuck with me. He said, "Why? Sometimes you got to be a fool." So he said, "Don't stay a fool, though." But sometimes, your wisdom comes from being the fool first. So yeah, that's. And I left the church. And the reason that I left the church is just I was learning so much about trauma and blame and how what we call sin behaviors were affected by some of these adverse childhood experiences that we never healed from. So I got tired of blaming people for doing bad. I want to show them why they were making it. And like me, they were able to see that they weren't a bad person, that something bad happened to them, and their brain is doing what it's supposed to do. Trauma is not a bad thing. It's trauma is an ordinary occurrence that occurs because of something unordinary happened to you.
Yes.
So when trauma kicks in, it's trying to help you survive. So a lot of times, how we survive is through coping. People choose different methodologies. You know, for me, it was sex and alcohol. For other people, it may be drugs. For other people, it could be work. And then for other people, it could be church. So we can hide and cope. But my dream and my passion is to help survivors thrive. You know, I think
Yeah.
sometimes we're so busy surviving, we don't know what it's like to survive. I mean, to thrive, to to let God pull us into a place where we can just be awed, right? And don't try to, feel like, well, I don't deserve this, but to allow love to allow you to feel God love, and that is what keeps me going.
Yes, so true. Woo!
Yeah.
I got to put some tea off of that man of God. I'm telling you, you have really dropped it on tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Your story is just so amazing, and it's going to continue to help people all around the world. You know, this is a subject that a lot of times is not talked about when it
Mhm.
comes to the male factor.
Yeah.
It's talked about with females, but even with females, I find that it's not talked about a lot
Mhm.
either. But you know, a lot of times it's just so refreshing when God lets you know that
Mhm.
I am a victim, but then God shows us how to become victorious and
Yeah.
no longer live as a victim. You
Exactly.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I remember I was just sharing this with my mom the other night. I said, I remember when Joyce Myers used to always share her story. She still talks about her story. And when I
Mhm.
would listen to her one particular day, she said that she thanked God for what had happened.
Yeah.
And it made me angry at first because being a survivor, I was like, okay, God, I do thank you for a lot of things, the good,
Yeah.
the bad. I know they all work together for the good. That's what the
Right.
words say.
Yeah.
But I was like, how can I thank you for going through such traumatic experience,
Yeah.
And it's amazing how God just, let me know then. And even just a couple of days ago, a young woman came to me and she said to me that what happened to you, because of it, you're changing lives. She
Mhm.
said, you know, um, your books, the magazine,
Yeah.
your even God leading you to do dropping the tea. She was just like, everything is surrounded by what
Mhm.
happened to you.
Yeah.
So I have to look back and think, who would I be
Yeah.
if if that tragic didn't take place, if it did not happen? And I often say it's like, Jesus is the ultimate sacrifice on the cross, but then we all have a cross to bear. And it's
Oh,
like you're bearing your cross, me bearing my cross, so that we can help other people.
oh yeah. Because God is still in the resurrection and blessing business, right? So everybody talk about the cross, they talk about the desertion of Jesus when he was going to the cross, but it was the resurrection that we really need to be talking about. And one of the things I tell this in one of my stories when I take the stage. As a young kid, I didn't believe God was real. And one of
Me
the
neither.
things that I always say was, God, if you real, I want to see what you did in the Bible. The Bible, people talk about all that stuff, raising dead. If you really God, I want to see you raise the dead in my face. I want to see evidence that you're able to raise the dead. And God made me my own evidence. Right? God raised me from the dead. And so
Okay.
I became the evidence that God says, okay, I got you. I got you. I do one better. I'll resurrect you from the dead. And I remember telling God, God, help protect kids from what I went through. Help protect kids and families heal. And I remember specifically God saying, son, that's why I saved you, so you could do it. And I was like, but who am I to do that? And God said, son, I got your record. I was the one. I was there with you, right? The fact is, we live in an evil world. We live in an
Yeah.
abusive world. We live in
Yes, we
a world where victims are questioned and the suspects, abusers, are given the benefit of the doubt, right? I mean, listen to our music, the misogynist lyrics that we celebrate. Guys talking about women in degrading ways, not respecting our women. Right? Look at our movies, how violent they are. Look at what we sell our kids in video games when they talk about,
You're
killing.
right. You're
So,
so right.
so here's the thing I have to tell people. Here's the thing I get in trouble for. Jesus was a teacher and a healer. When you heal people, you affect the economy. Because people who are in survival mode, they become consumer of things. They think things are going to make them feel better about themselves, so they consume. And those in power in high places, they want to keep it that way. They want to keep you sick, because as long as you're sick and your brain is traumatized, you're going to go out and buy and try to compensate for that pain that you have. So that's
Yes.
the drugs. That's why the liquor stores on every corner, right? That's why they come there with these CBD. That's why they push you over to the way to the gym side. Say, hey, it's your fault that you do this way. So go to the gym and put all this money in the $50 billion industry, to make them, because when you're a survivor, you're always trying to consume and fit, look like you're okay when you're not okay. So when God comes to heal you, first thing God does is starts taking down that stuff.
Ooh, now you saying a word, and that
Yeah,
is so true.
because
That
God doesn't want you to be a consumer. God wants you to be a giver. Because as long as you're taking, you can't give, right? And so God said, I'm going to give you your life back so that I can give other people their lives back through you. But I need you to understand my glory to another. So if I give you that power, you have to be careful with it. And that's really hard when you grew up all your life thinking you weren't worthy of anything. But now you got people coming to you, asking you to sign books or just take pictures with you. It messes with you, right? In particular from a male, and I've got this beautiful female saying, right? And I'm not healed, right? She could be coming to me the best way she know how. If sex was all she knew to get validation, she may come at me that way. And if I violate her, wow, it's like I just made God, right, null and void to this person. So those are the struggles that come with the call. Right? That's that tree you can't eat off of, right there, right? The moment you eat off that tree, you bring in death to not only your world, but the world of those around you. So as survivors, that's that constant struggle, right? To know triggers, to know when I feel a certain way. I know rejection triggers me. Anytime I feel rejected, anytime I feel like I didn't do well, I'm a people pleaser, right? Because I've always told that, make people happy and they'll like you. you know, I grew up when I came home from my grandfather's house. Uh, I found out very quickly that the best way to be liked in my home was to be quiet and to be good. Um, so I did everything in my power to do that, and that carries over to your adulthood. Right?
yeah.
Sometimes we teach about a God who only accepts you when you're perfect, when you're good. But how can God accept me when I was violated and destroyed and tarnished? So you see that struggle I had,
Yes.
coming up as a survivor. So I tell survivors all the time, the best way to heal is to be heard. Being heard leads to being healed. And it's interesting, I tell people the root word of heart is here, but in the middle of heart is ear, right? You can't have a heart if you don't have the ear to hear what God is to you. That's why oftentimes Jesus would say, he that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit is saying. And trauma and abuse stops you from hearing. It stops you from hearing because all you hear is the negative voices in your head. God's voice can't get through that. Those negative forces and voices saying you'll never be nothing. You're not going to be anything. You're a male. You must be king. You let that cat take your body, man. Who are you? And so, because God whispers. And if you don't silence those voices, you won't hear the whisper. calling you Kevin, right? He called Moses. So I think that's what's coming to light right now. I think all these people you're beginning to see arrested, like the R. Kellys and the T.E.As and the people being held accountable. I think God is really ushering in this healing era. Where he's going to let us get tired of the fake stuff. And people going to start looking for meaning rather than money. Going to start looking for significance rather than success. And I think that's what we are.
I agree. I totally agree. I tell you, this has been so enlightening. It's been such a great time of talking with you and hearing your story. It's just so amazing. Was there any time that you sought counseling? What are your thoughts on counseling?
About counseling, telling my story?
Well, just someone to help you to go through and process trauma that
counseling was definitely detrimental to my recovery. In fact, it's funny. I didn't want to go to counseling. My pastor at the time, my mentor, he was a counselor, but he knew he couldn't counsel me because he was too close to me. And he gave me a card of a counselor, a friend of his, and I didn't go. So he did the next best thing. That's why you gotta love God for the godly people. He invited the guy to preach because the guy was also a preacher. And I sat in the front row and the guy showed up, and I never forget the title of his sermon was "You're Not God." And I was like, whoa, you're not God. He was like, you have to let God send people to your life to help you heal.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, I started a counseling relationship with him, and he started teaching me about trauma, and everything made sense. And so it was interesting that God would use another male to reshape, reform my image of the masculine. Because people used to ask me what was the most fearful thing I used to do as a police officer. They used to think it was, encountering people on the street. But it was getting home at the end of my shift and looking at that guy in the mirror that I didn't like. I had to put that loaded gun away because when I drank, I was having thoughts of suicide. God has showed up in my life in so many ways.
Yes, it's apparent. It's apparent that he has very showed up.
Yeah, because I was in the shootout, just me and 4 other guys on the police. I got into a car chase by myself with some guys who had just murdered somebody. They jumped out the car to AK-47s and pointed them at me to shoot me, and they all fell down. They tripped over each other and used the guns to break their fall, so they couldn't use the guns no more.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So I actually gave chase to one of the guys and caught up with one of the guys. He actually had another gun on me and tried to take my gun. And I remember the last thing I remember was moving and the gun went off. And I don't even remember pulling the trigger. And it ended up shooting the guy, but it didn't kill him. And then when they came and got my gun to do ballistic test on the gun, they were asking me where the shell casing was because I fired the gun. And when they went to look for it, they couldn't find it. So they asked for my gun, and when they got my gun, they pulled it back, and the gun that I was supposed to have shot, the bullet was still in the gun. And they was telling me, your gun wasn't supposed to go off. Even if it would have went off, it would have exploded. So if the guy would have took the gun from you, he wouldn't have been able to use it against you. God allowed the gun to fire one time, and he shut it down after that. So, and then they said the gun wasn't even supposed to fire because when I snatched it back, the slide did not go all the way back, so it didn't eject the round. So according to the detectives and the ballistic experts, my gun wasn't even supposed to go off. They don't know how it went off. So, yeah. So I have many stories like that.
Yeah, so, I see you do.
Yeah,
wow. Yeah. So I tell you, that just go to show you that God really have you here on purpose, and He definitely have you here for purpose.
Oh, definitely.
And you are, definitely touching many lives. And I just see God doing so much more, in your life. And, I just pray that, God will, like He told me last year, He said, there's some residue. He said, and I'm about to heal it, and I'm about to deal with your residue.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
and
Then sit with it, right? That's the wilderness experience. When the Spirit led Jesus to the wilderness to sit with it and to be distracted at the same time. But to know that your calling is so strong on you that you have to choose calling, right, over custom. You have to choose calling, over the crowds. You have to choose calling, over your circumstances. And
yeah,
that's the whole, I just want to tell a survivor, um, oftentimes we beat ourselves up because we thinking we should, man, that happened years ago. But I want you to think about this. Time is a man-made construct, right? And the thing is, the mind and the body are so connected that the body will follow the mind. So if your mind, you think you're getting old, your body will follow suit. Because in reality, there's no such thing as time, right? So when people say that happened 30 years ago, if you never encountered it and got help, there's a therapist that says that your spirit, your soul freezes in the moment that you're traumatized. So if you traumatize again, your body grows, but your soul stays 10. And that's why God comes to heal your soul so that you can really enjoy life. Because you may have an adult body, but that 10-year-old calling the shots.
yes, I know exactly what you're
Yeah,
talking about, because
yeah,
I often tell women that that little girl inside of you needs to
mhm,
be healed.
yeah,
A lot of times they're walking around. I
yeah,
have talked to 40, 50, 60-year-old women
yeah,
that they're not healed,
mhm,
from what happened to them when they were 6.
yeah. And it's affect every part of you because the part of your brain that makes decisions, your prefrontal cortex, is
Right.
not communicating to your survival brain, which is your amygdala, the part of the brain that's impulsive, the part of the brain that's surviving, right? So when you're in survival mode, you're not making good decisions. You're not being discerning about your friendships and relationships because you can't. Your brain doesn't have the connections to do so. You know, Nature teaches us everything grows by connection. Tree connected to the ground, limb to the tree, fruit to the limb, right? So it's no wonder Jesus said you should know them by their fruit, by what they produce, right? Whatever
Come
you
on now.
produce, right, is what you connected to, right? You can't produce stuff. That's why Jesus said you can't do anything godly without me, connected to me. Uh, and so trauma disconnects us. It not only disconnects my brain, it connects me from myself, it connects me from my community. And that's why so much of the community was violence. We're dealing with the symptoms. We're medicating and diagnosing people, but we're not helping them heal. The root core of the problem is abuse and unresolved trauma. So we go back, and I get in trouble for this, even when it comes to spanking. I was in the church, pastor about beating kids with pots and pans. I was like, wow,
Oh,
you know.
oh,
People laugh about that, but I said it's interesting that we use the slave master's methodology to punish the slave. We carry that over into our children because what happened was because the young kids, when Africans had young kids in slavery, they had to teach them the mind and not be back taught, not the back taught. So they would beat their kids, knowing that they were beating them there. So I'm beating you for your own good. That's where that comes from, right? Because if you say that in front of master, he gonna kill you. So I need to
right.
be in the house to show you that respect. So and we do the same thing today. It's just carried over, right? I'm not gonna let the system have you. I'll beat you. But we don't know that the beating and the trauma and putting the kid in an abusive environment is wiring their brains to be violent themselves. Because now we're teaching children conflict resolution through violence, right? Because
Oh,
no
you
matter,
saying the word.
right? So brutal people are the most powerful people in the world. If you think about it, Jesus, sweet little Jesus, said one of the most harsh, meanest things he could say when it came to a child. He said, if any one of you does anything to one of these little ones and cause them not to believe in me, it would be better for a millstone to be thrown around your neck and you'd be thrown
That's
into a
what he
sea.
said.
I mean, come on. Sound like Jesus said, go kill yourself. So, but think about it. when you just show a child, particularly in the developmental years, you skew everything up about their view of God, about their life, about their purpose, about their calling. Now God has come in. And I tell people this, God can make you a millionaire in a minute, but it'll take God a lifetime to change you and to heal you. And here's why. God doesn't need your participation to make you a millionaire, but he does need you to participate with him to make you healed.
Oh, that's good there. That's true.
Yeah.
That's
And
true.
that's why a lot of people are sitting in pews really not healed, because we've been told that God's going to do everything, when God, the invitation is, follow me. I'm going to show you what life is really about.
Yeah.
You have to let go. I had to let go of me being a victim and say, no, I'm a conqueror.
There you go.
So it's not just what we believe, it's how do we unbelieve what we already believe. Because most of your beliefs are established in your childhood. And your world is surrounded by what you believe. And so one of the things I used to tell people who helped me as a detective, that we would put people in jail, but we were sending the children right back to the same environments, vicious environments where the abuse took place. And so the brain just doesn't recognize the event, it recognizes the environment in which the event occurred. So even if the abuse stops, if I send a child back into the same bedroom where their uncle was speaking in, the brain still sees that as a traumatized situation. So the child never gets the help from the trauma, particularly in the Black communities. We don't teach about counseling. So every day that child goes to bed, that child is living a nightmare. And then we send them to school and wonder why they can't focus. And we say, well, they get can't learn. But the part of the brain that's used for learning, decision, and planning and strategizing, it's not available to the child. So the child holds life without intervention. That's why God calls you and I to have these conversations. We need to be having these conversations early and often.
Yes, we do. It is something that we really need to talk about a lot more. And, I thought about, how a lot of times people say what goes on in this house stays in this house.
Yeah.
What about what goes on in the house if it's hurting you?
Yeah.
Do it need to stay in the house?
No, it links into the community and it links into your future. Again, time is a man-made construct, right? I can say I'm 49 years old, but I'm not really, right? So if I take time out of the picture, what happened to me at 12, it's not that far away. I'm still dealing with it if I haven't confronted it. There's a scripture when God says, sin lied at the door, but you must confront it, because his power is to rule over you. Right? There's a reason Moses has to turn to the bush. And then when he turns, confronts, God speaks from it. I tell people, we running from our pain, but that's where God lives.
All right now.
You want to hear God speak? Yeah. You want to hear God speak, visit your pain. Because that's what God going to speak to you from. Right?
That is so true.
Yeah. Yeah. If you medicate running from it, you running from God.
That is so true.
Yeah.
That is so true. Because even, looking back in my own life and my own story and situation, I had some of the same things like you said. I ran to alcohol and cigarettes and men friend and just all kinds of different things, trying to I don't know, I guess find a way, that void, that issue, that problem, to deal with it. But none of those none of those things work.
They don't look at all they do is make you beat yourself up more. Then you have to go get something else to make yourself feel good about yourself, beating yourself up. And then you beat yourself up because you wouldn't get the thing that you said you weren't going to do again. So, and then, you say, God forgive me, and God said, you're forgiven, but you're not healed, right? Which means you're going to do it again, and you're going to come to me again for forgiveness, right? So find out why you do the thing and not just try to stop doing the thing, right? Find out why you see sex as a tool of comfort, right? Rather than running to it every single time you get frustrated, every single time you get angry, every single time you get lonely. Sit with it. Because if you sit with it, that's when it's going to talk to you. It's going to tell you.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. It's going to tell you, listen, this is, and then it's in that where you're going to see God's grace. Because then you're going to see, man, if it hadn't been for God, all that stuff I used to do, man, it's people in jail for stuff it's people in the grave.
Okay.
Jesus and doing stuff for what I did, So when you sit with it, you can really see the grace of God on your life. And it's not that he didn't give other people's grace. It's just that God has you in mind every time. He makes another day. He survive or not, no matter what you're going through, God said, I can resurrect you. But I need you to visit this pain right here. I need you to sit with it. Right? I need you to be still. And that's when you're going to know I'm God. When you stop running.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. I love it. I tell you, we would be here for hours because I tell you, I am thoroughly enjoying the conversation, and you have some awesome nuggets. Are you in the ministry? Like, are you a minister or something? Or
my ministry is the 12 Project. I do this, and one of my goals is to make education, reach education 24/7. If you go to my website at the www.the12project, you'll see a link on that says camp courses. It's free courses. CAMP stands for Child Abuse Monthly Prevention and Education Program. Because, at the beginning of the time.
It's on the screen right now. It's on the screen right now.
And the reason I call it camp because at the beginning of the time, all important conversations happen around campfires, right? Who talked about things that help us not only thrive, but help us move forward as a people. We talked around campfire when there was no TV, no internet, right? When there was no radio, family got together. So I want to return us to that idea of having conversations about things that matter. And because the news only report bad things, the news was never intended to solve anything. So if all you watching is the news, you're gonna get depressed. So I just, so I wanted to create a 24/7 online class that people can go. And I'll be talking about resiliency. I'll be talking about addictions. I'll be talking about male survivors, teenage survivors, female survivors, adults in leadership churches. So every month I'm dropping a new video. So if you go to my website, the 12 Project, you'll see the camp courses for free, and you'll get the videos for free. I don't want to charge anybody for anything because it's already a different conversation piece. I trust God, and His grace is sufficient. But I think that to have what God has given me and to not share it is a sin itself.
Okay, I agree. I think the same way. Yes, dropping the T is just so. We're so thankful and so blessed that you came on tonight, and I just know that God told me this platform, and it has done that. It's been so many testimonies of God even taking people and opening up more doors for their stories to be shared, because everything we do is for the glory of Him and for helping people. That is my main purpose, that someone will be enlightened, someone will be encouraged, someone will feel like and know that they're not alone. So before we get ready to close out for tonight, I tell you, got so many good nuggets. We probably gonna have to have you later in the year or maybe the beginning of next year. We're gonna have to come. Dropping the T gonna have to have you to come back on. But I'm gonna give you just the opportunity where I'm gonna allow you to just speak for a few minutes to any male factor. And I pray that even females will be blessed. But I want you to speak to the male factors and tell them, if this is it's something they have went through and they have not dealt with it, how to help them get to a place to confront that thing, to talk about that thing, to start seeking for healing about the trauma, the sexual, thing that has happened to them. I'm going to give you a few minutes just to speak to the male right now.
Yeah, if you're a male survivor, just know that you're not alone. This happens on way more occasions than people think. And many times males are taught that we shouldn't feel, we shouldn't be vulnerable, that it's a weakness. But I've come to find out as a male survivor and victim myself, the vulnerability is actually your strength. It's opening up your heart so that you can receive. And oftentimes as men, we strengthen up, we tense up because we want to protect what we feel is the last thing that we own, which is our strength. And oftentimes in sexual assault cases, that's taken away from us. It's taken away from us in such a way, it's the only crime that not only affects the body, but affects the mind, the spirit, the soul. It cuts through every layer of your being. And this is one of the hardest things you're going to ever do. So I'm going to say, have compassion on yourself. I want you to learn to not blame yourself and beat yourself up, but just to learn to sit with yourself. And if you need to cry, cry. And surround yourself with people who can understand that you are on a healing path. Because healing is ing, it's never ed, right? You're going to always be going through it. And I want you to love yourself through it. You see, because if you keep beating yourself up, what's going to happen is that perpetual cycle is going to cause you to withdraw. It's going to cause you to pull back. One thing I know about God, my friend, is this, is that God wants to heal you every single day that you wake up, every minute. Even when you're sitting right here, there's a reason you're sitting here listening to me, because God wants to heal you. And God has been trying and trying and trying. But because of our loving God is such a loving God. Like my mom, he won't force you. He won't force you to do what he wants you to do. He wants you to reach out and accept the fact that he wants to help you. And I just want to tell you, male or female, right? There's a reason you're still here. God has work for you to do. But God wants to heal you. Because God said you're not even living your life. You're surviving. God said, I want to show you how to live. I want to show you how to live, how to appreciate what I'm giving you. Yes, it's going to be an uphill battle. But I'm with you every step of the way. And it's during those hard times that I want you to sit still. Instead of running to what you normally run to, sit still and let me show you I'm God. Because here's what I know for sure, my friends. Can't nobody heal you like God. And I know from the bottom of my heart that God's heart beats for you. And God wants to heal you. But I do want to warn you that healing is not easy. It takes a partnership with God. So if you're going to do it, I just want you to give it over to God and watch God move. He'll move. I'm living proof that he'll move. You know, I got up off that ground and ran. Little did I know that this little boy who ran from a perpetrator will one day be chasing. Little did I know this little boy who's been abused and bullied, that God would save me from so many things so that he can bring me back to Egypt to get those who were trapped and lead them to the promised land. And here's the thing, the good news is that you're part of that team. God is inviting you to join the team because he wants everybody to go to the promised land. So be encouraged. Love on yourself. Be easy on yourself. And surround yourself with people that you'll be vulnerable around. Because when you open up, God comes in. Thank you for having me. Blessings.
Blessings, blessings. We're so thankful for you tonight, man of God. We appreciate you coming on and sharing your heart and pouring out to the people and telling your amazing story. And we know that God is so pleased on tonight. I tell you, let's take our last sip for tonight because we have totally dropped the T on tonight. The T has been dropped on tonight. We want to thank all of our guests for coming on and being with us on tonight. Thank you for joining YCG Ministries, dropping the T. We are here every Monday night, telling amazing testimonies of what God has done. Continue to share, continue to like, and all of our replayers, please let us know that you have came on and listened to the broadcast. We are so blessed and thankful for being here tonight. So until next time, man of God, we're telling everybody, bye-bye. God bless.
God bless you.